Hey listeners, if you like this podcast, check out our other show, The Study Table. Listen to archived content and in-depth interviews with insiders and innovative people working with student athletes. It's on our website, www.fredopie.com. Welcome to the dinner table, a discussion with food as a lens into cultures and societies. I'm Fred Opie. Rabbi Moshe Bleich is a native of Brooklyn, New York. He and his wife, Geni, founded the Wellesley-Weston Chabad, a traditional Jewish home enjoyed by everyone in the community. Rabbi Bleich has traveled extensively, including to London, Russia, and the Ukraine, as well as to Cuba for the welfare of Jewish people worldwide. We talk about his recent trips to Cuba and culinary observations there. Did the Cuban officials, when you landed, did they try to confiscate any of the food?
I brought in loads of food, of course, because I keep kosher, I'm a rabbi. I had to bring food just to eat. Now, based on my first trip to Cuba, which was several years ago, where it was even difficult for me to get produce while I was there, I basically figured that I need to bring every single thing, because produce, of course, is kosher. I can get that anywhere, any country I travel in. Turns out I went twice this summer. Produce, not lots, but maybe several different items were very available now.
For example?
For example, mango, very available. It's ironic because mango in this country is very expensive.
Do you remember the year, the first time you went to Cuba?
I think it was around 2007. That's
Okay.
just a guess.
Okay.
It was somewhere around there.
And at that time, did you see mangoes available at all?
Here's my experience. I showed up in Cuba the first night. I stayed in a casa particular, stayed in someone's house. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So I had brought along tuna fish, break out my tuna fish, open up the can, and with my really broken Spanish, I asked the woman if she has a cucumber that I can borrow or a pepper that I can borrow to put into my tuna fish. So she says no. But then a little later, I'm looking in her refrigerator and I see that there's actually a cucumber there. And I say, hey, there's a cucumber here. I'm going to take it and I will replace it for you tomorrow. I'll bring you a cucumber tomorrow. At first she says, well, you can't take it because how will I get it back? I said, the stores are closed maybe, but tomorrow I will get it for you. She then looks at me, pulls out a ration card from her book and says, wait, do you have one of these? I say, no. She says, then how are you going to replace the cucumber?
Interesting.
And that was my welcome to Cuba and my non-possibility of me being able to get a cucumber. A couple of days later, I was literally starving because I had not prepared properly. And a guy came over to me in the street and he says...
This is in Havana.
This is in Havana. And he says to me something real quickly and walks by. And I thought he was trying to offer me drugs. And then I was like, wait a second, what did you say? Turns out the guy was offering me an apple. He was literally selling an apple.
A black market apple.
On the black market.
Oh my God.
It was unreal. I was like, oh my gosh, however many apples you have, please, let me get them. So that experience has changed a little bit.
You know what's funny? It reminds me of being in Harlem on 125th Street. Guys walking by and cigarettes. You know, it's like this. It's like the same thing.
Right.
But the valued commodity is not the cigarettes without tax on them because they're bootleg, but it's the black market fruit.
Exactly. It's not the drugs. It's not even the cigarettes. It's the apple.
Has he got a stash of them someplace and you go with them? Has he got, I'm thinking of the long trench coat, but
guys
you
wearing
open
a
it up.
long trench coat, I kid you not, with inside pockets with apples in them. I'm not making this up.
Wow.
I could not believe it. I wanted to take a picture of the guy. He's like, no.
Did he speak English?
No, he only knew how to say apple.
Okay. Wow.
And I was like, oh, photo. He's like, no. He didn't want to get in trouble for selling those apples.
How much were they?
I think it was $1. I think it was $1. And that actually brings me to my point of my most recent trip, which was that mangoes, which I love, but I rarely buy because of the price in this country. So they sell mangoes, and you can buy them. They're working on double currency there. So on the local currency, which is really nothing, I think they're 17 to $1 or something, you can buy 5 mangoes for $1.
On a regular market, not even a black
Now
market.
that's not on street corners. But now apples are still on the black market. And those are still $1 or $2. Each. Mangoes are available. Hence, you buy them for 5 for $1. I ate more mangoes in 1 week than I eat in a year. I had a couple of mangoes a day. Apples, on the other hand, in this country, you can get 2 or 3 for $1, or $1 or $1.50 in Havana, which is crazy. Oranges are totally not available at all. And when I ask for them, they get into the whole political thing.
What is the political thing with
political
oranges?
thing with the oranges is that there were orange groves. Orange groves got destroyed in hurricanes. Hurricanes are created by the White House. There is a button in the basement of the White House.
This is fascinating.
And anytime Obama needs to either change what people are talking about, change the topic, or give it to the Cubans, he hits that button, which creates the hurricane, which destroys the orange groves, which is that the reason that you want an apple, you want an orange?
And you can't get it.
You're an American? Aren't you even embarrassed to ask us for an orange when you're the one that destroyed our oranges?
And you know that this button exists as an American. That's the assumption.
For sure. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
This is
Are you so
unbelievable.
foolish? Are you so foolish to believe that that button does not exist? I'm the idiot.
Now, could you unpeel from this lore that this dates back to several decades, or is this a new invention of U.S. foreign policy and diplomatic pressure?
I took a look at some of the school books.
Well, this is actually in the...
This is real stuff. This is in the books. This is in the books. This is the history books. Yeah. America is the enemy. The people, not so much, meaning they're not going to hate on you, but it's more of a hatred of the concept, the American concept, which they believe destroyed everything and any opportunity they'll ever have. How that plays itself out is several different ways. One of them is the hurricane.
Are they saying that this so-called hurricane-producing button has existed for decades, or is this something new? And when you look at that, could you tell me when you looked at the book?
I don't remember if it mentioned a specific hurricane. I think it was talking about the general idea of hurricanes.
Okay.
Is something that is created, man-made. And the United States, of course, has access to so many different things, which the Cubans would have if there was no embargo.
I was there in 2004, January 2004. And what was most interesting to me is when you would walk the streets of Havana and look at the bodegas run by the government, the shelves were very empty. I mean, it sounds to me from what you're saying that I would not see that now. There's more on the shelves?
There is a little more on the shelves. This is a story I tell often, that everybody's getting paid by the government to work, whether or not they work. So I remember walking into some supermarket, and there were literally about 15 workers there in the store. The shelves were completely bare, empty. There was nothing. There was no electricity in the store. The lights were off. But there were 15 workers there because they're getting paid to work in the supermarket. So whether or not there's food there, they're there. And those shelves are empty. It's changed a bit. The shelves are not empty, but you can't get anything or everything that you want. A good example, a guy tells me, why is it? And we were having the whole discussion about communism versus, I said, look, there are wonderful things in the United States. For instance, you go into a supermarket and everything is readily available. You can buy any sort of food, any type of food. The guy looks at me with the straightest of faces and says, that is the curse of America, because they want you to be unhealthy. They want you to be fat. They stuff you with food, and that's part of the evil of the United States. Whereas in Cuba, we want to be healthy. Therefore, they limit the amount of food that you can have
as health policy.
as health policy through ration cards of how much you can get, through the amount of food that's available on the shelves, because they want to make sure that you're not going to fall into the trap of the United States and you're going to remain healthy.
So this law, again, seems
Right.
very interesting of how one would interpret that.
There are people that are obese. Yeah, there are people that are overweight, for sure. It's a little harder in Cuba, but yeah, there are plenty of people that are overweight there.
We'll be right back. For more interviews and related content, go to www.fredopie.com. Ask questions on Facebook at www.facebook.com/The Fred Opie Show and on Twitter at Fred Opie Show. If you're enjoying this interview with Rabbi Bleich about staying kosher in Cuba, go to our archives and check out the interview with Amir Reza about food and post-war Iran.
Also, when I was a kid, even today, people won't eat fruit if it's out of season. So if your berries ripen in mid-June, you're not gonna have berries in February. Pomegranates are huge in Iran. So you wait for late fall pomegranate season. And, my father, I grew up 6 of us plus my parents, and he'd bring like a box of pomegranates, and we'd just sit around a big tray on the floor and just go to town on the pomegranate and just devour it.
Now back to the show. So tell me, the people that are living there and maintaining a kosher diet that what are they doing?
Good question. So Cuba used to have a very rich Jewish community, pun intended.
As in pre-1959 revolution?
Correct. Both Cubans, people who had come to Cuba from other countries in the last 100 years, and then, of course, those that were investing in Cuba prior to Las Vegas. So there was a strong Jewish community there, a strong observant Jewish community there, which would mean that they would be keeping strictly kosher. There was kosher food readily available there. Somehow or other over the last 50, 60 years, all those that were observant, when I say all those, I'm literally referring to 99% of the observant Jews have left. There's a huge community in Miami. They call themselves Cubans.
Cubans?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Huge community. They have kosher Cuban restaurants out there. And then, of course, there are those that went to Israel. And then there are those that went to other Spanish-speaking countries, like Argentina has a Jewish Cuban community, etc. The community now is very small. I've seen some literature say that there are 5,000 Jews in Cuba. According to my opinions and my estimations, and I've been there now 4 times, it's closer to 1,500.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really small. In Havana, there are 3 synagogues, but a big percent of them are going there for the handouts. Any foreigner that comes by is going to leave money. But most Jewish Cubans are doing a drop better than others because everybody has friends and family in the States that's sending something. It's impossible to get by with no help. The Cuban government is just not giving you enough. Mm-hmm. So everybody's doing something shady. Everyone's doing something black markety. Everyone has a cousin in Miami that's sending money. You can't get by otherwise. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the Jewish community has a little bit more of that because Jews that come by are just leaving money. Or, I mean, not a lot, but if everybody leaves $20 or 50, people come by every single day to the synagogues, tourists. Back to the food aspect of it. So there is officially a kosher butcher. In terms of kosher standard, I would not eat from it. I show up in the country, I've got a backpack, huge backpack that any tourist would have, but mine is filled 75-80% with food. The Cubans, I've looked through my bag in the past. I don't look like the typical person coming into Cuba. I have a beard for starters, but in Cuba, if your name is not Fidel Castro, you do not have a beard. I walk down the street, and this wasn't once or twice, but dozens of times, people would call out to me, Fidel Rojo, like the red Fidel.
Redheaded Fidel.
Exactly, because they've just never seen a beard before. Anyway, so my bag is full of food. They don't take it away. I feel like they don't.
Are they questioning you when you come?
I always get stopped.
Okay.
I always get stopped. It's like I'll be talking to a guy on the plane and like trying to hang out with him and rub shoulders with him and try to like sneak through with him. And they'll always be like, you to the side. It always happens. They don't want drugs.
Okay.
They don't want weapons.
Okay.
And guess what the third thing is? They don't want walkie-talkies. When you land, you sign a piece of paper that says no drugs, no weapons, and no walkie-talkies. I was able to get by now better than ever before. I brought some basics. I was able to buy produce. There were lots of papaya, lots of mango, no apples and oranges. I'm not saying that you can't go into a hotel restaurant and buy a salad that has an orange in it.
Yeah.
I did not see any oranges. I have a feeling that there might be some oranges growing, but I would say that the majority of the oranges groves were destroyed, which makes it a very luxurious item that I have not seen on any
What
of my
about
trips.
the availability of plantains or bananas? Are they readily available?
Yeah, you can get bananas as well. The typical stuff, like there's certain things you can only get with your ration card. I will tell you, even though I'm a kosher eater, I'll tell you my opinion. You walk by them there, it's the summer, it's 110 degrees. There's no air conditioning. They're selling meat and chicken out in the street. And that is the most disgusting thing. I mean, because it's hanging out there all day in the sun, the smell. Thank God I keep kosher, because there's no way I'd eat that stuff, even if I didn't keep kosher. I've seen that in many countries. You see it in Russia, but it's cold. Eggs. You can get eggs, and that's something that is kosher.
Okay.
So I brought a little pan with me. I was able to make scrambled eggs in the morning, and then I brought along rice cakes, and which they've never seen before.
Interesting.
I was offering people rice cakes, and it's funny, everybody has the same response. They're like, why would you offer me cardboard?
What other foods that you brought seem to fascinate Cubans?
The candies, they cannot get enough of the candies. Even though they have candies there now, but I brought candies and lollipops, just things to suck on to give me some sugar during the day.
Yeah.
It's like you offer someone one, they're like, can I get 2, 3, 4 of those? And not even for their kids. It's like, can I just have one and eat it? I came across a family of observant Jews that kept kosher. So I took a big chunk of my food and just gave it to them.
Okay.
I'm probably not the only person to have done that. I came into their kitchen, and I wouldn't even eat from their kitchen because I don't even know. I mean, they're observant and they're doing the best they can do, and kudos to them and to that. But I personally wouldn't eat there. And I came into their kitchen, and I saw that they had all sorts of kosher spices, etc., from the United States. There are Jewish organizations like Chabad, which I'm actually affiliated with.
Which is what? What is the...
It's a religious organization, which is in about 100 different countries throughout the world and in every state. We have a Chabad right here at Babson.
With the goal of...
It's mainly a religious organization, which does outreach, but they do plenty of humanitarian work in dozens of places that need it. So Chabad will send in kosher food to those and give it out to all Jewish people, whether or not they keep kosher, will get it. And that's what I was referring to earlier, how Jewish people somehow seem to be the recipients of a lot of... And they'll give it to non-Jews as well. They'll give food aid, they'll give it to Jews and non-Jews. So, and that goes to Jewish people that keep kosher and those that don't keep kosher. So there was a lot of that. I actually took some pictures of it, so because it was very surprising for me to see the brands that I grew up with in Brooklyn on these people's shelves. They either eat the non-kosher food. Those that are more observant probably get from the kosher butcher, etc. And those that are like literally full-on observant are doing what I did, suffering a little bit. Eating what they can get when they get these shipments in, trying to get food from people like me that come in and leave their leftovers, and make do with produce. All produce is kosher, and so they get some, you can get by. I'm not saying it's a fun life. Certainly not a fun to live in Cuba, although when you speak to Cubans, lots of them wouldn't change it.
Do they hold that same party line and interpretation of U.S. foreign policy, i.e., this is why we don't have oranges. Do they hold that same?
I'm going to say less. I felt like the communistic feelings and ideas were a lot less. Fidel is everything and anything.
If you look at the period of the Inquisition, okay, and European history, and even as it manifested itself in colonial America under Spanish colonialism, there were people who were brought in front of the Inquisitions based on their identity to foods, i.e. Jewish foods. So if one were to cook primarily with olive oil, we have one here. If you cooked with lard, it was in some ways to protect yourself against people questioning your religious identity. Do you see any of those similar manifestations in Cuba with how one eats and therefore identity with Jewish identity, and therefore this is someone we should watch?
So porco is the most popular food. It's in everything. You can't just order, I speak to some Jewish people that go in there and they'll say, I keep quasi-kosher. I'll just order salad. Well, guess what? Salad in Cuba means salad with porco.
Interesting.
Everything has pork in it. The Jewish people have only two options. To not eat any pork would mean basically not to eat out, not to go anywhere, or not to do anything, or to keep kosher. I don't know that people are. I don't know that it's a problem to be Jewish because, or to keep kosher, in terms of the state, because again, as far as they're concerned, Judaism doesn't exist, just like Catholicism doesn't exist.
If you look at the migration of Cubans who came to the Americas, there's a very strong class dimension to the decades of the migration. Those who had the most money were the first to leave. They tended to be in complexion, maybe in religious identity, all those things. That was a certain. The poorer folks who left, they left closer to the 90s,
right,
et cetera, because they didn't have the wherewithal.
Story. I'm not going to say that I haven't seen major changes in the last several years. I have. Mm-hmm. I've seen Coca-Cola being sold now. It's not Coca-Cola from the United States. It's Mexican Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. But the mere fact, the United States can easily say no Mexican Coca-Cola there. The United States can say whatever they want about Coca-Cola. Fact that they're allowing, they may not say that they're allowing, but they are allowing because it wouldn't be there without the United States knowing about it. The fact that there is Coca-Cola on the shelf, the fact that there are Pringles on the shelf. I saw these things that as soon as you get to the airport, you can buy Pringles and Coca-Cola and Red Bull. There's no way that this stuff would be on the shelves if the U.S. didn't allow it to happen.
To check out our podcast archive, suggest show topics, and advertise on the show, and to book me as a guest and or speaker, visit our website, www.fredopie.com. That's www.fredopie.com. For information about advertising on the show, please email us at fdopie@gmail.com. That's fdopie@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and be good.